All right. In New York City, we are a dual attorney city, as I think I've mentioned a few times on some of our past videos. But what does that mean? And what does that attorney look for? Today, I am so excited because we have Lynn Markel of Markel Law, who's going to come and tell us the 5 things that the attorney looks for in the due diligence process to make sure that you can understand what they're going in and looking for you before you sign the contract. My name is Erin Wheelock, and I'm with the Wheelock Team, powered by Keller Williams. And we are helping people from all over the globe to relocate to New York, either for their primary home, secondary home, vacation home, investment unit, whatever it is you're looking for, we would love to help you. All right, everyone, I'm so excited. I'm here with Lynn Markel from Markel Law, and we are going to be talking about the 5 things that your attorney looks for during due diligence, which is so unbelievably important. Thank you for taking the time to educate all of us on this.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So let's start off. What is number 1?
So number 1 are the building's financials. Building financials can tell us a lot about the condition of the building and how it operates. So the first thing that I look for is if the building is operating on a deficit. That's important to know. Are there enough funds in the reserve fund to cover for unexpected costs or future capital improvements? If there aren't enough funds in the reserve fund, that could lead to an assessment. A lot of clients, especially first-time home buyers, don't know what an assessment means. So an assessment is an extra monthly charge on top of your monthly maintenance or common charges that you would have to pay to cover for that either unexpected cost or a future capital project. Another thing to be mindful of when you're reviewing the financials are the legal fees of the building. Are the legal fees high? If the legal fees are higher than usual, it could tell us one things. 1, the building is either involved in a litigation, or 2, the building is involved in a collection action to address owners not paying either the maintenance or common charges on time, which is a big issue. So that's something to be aware of. So lastly, we want to see what are the financial obligations of the building? Does the building have a mortgage? A lot of buildings do have a mortgage, and if the building does have a mortgage, we want to make sure we know the maturity date. If the mortgage matures within a year, as most of you know, the interest rates have gone up. And if the building elects to refinance the mortgage, we already know that the monthly mortgage payments will be much higher than they are today. So that's very important to know what the mortgage terms are for the building.
That's actually so interesting. I never thought about that, but you're right. With mortgage interest rates going up for the homeowner, they're also going to up for the building. If that's coming up soon, something to be prepared for.
Exactly.
That's why we have attorneys here. Okay. What's number 2?
Number 2, any upcoming capital projects. We need to know what the buyer is walking into. Are they walking into a major repair, a major renovation? For example, I just had a client who is buying in a building where they're doing upgrades on the elevator. There's 1 elevator in the building, which means 6 months of no elevator. So that is a big deal. So it's very important to know what are the upcoming projects. Are they redoing the lobby? Are they replacing because they're recurring leaks? So we want to know what those upcoming projects and how is the building planning on paying for those projects, which brings us back to the money in the reserve fund. If the building does not have enough money to cover the cost of those upcoming projects, this again could lead to either a maintenance or a common charge increase, or potentially the implementation of an assessment.
Out of curiosity, how long in advance do buildings start to talk about anything that could potentially be coming up?
So it really depends on the type of project. Some projects are mandated by the city, so the building does have a few years of a leadway where they know what projects to expect. Some projects are unexpected. Maybe the boiler broke last year and now the boiler needs to be replaced. So it really depends on the type of project and the building.
That makes a lot of sense, right? Some things you know about, some things you do not.
Yeah.
So what is number 3?
Number 3 is the history of maintenance and common charge increase in the building. The history of the maintenance and common charge increase in the building gives us a glimpse on how the building is run and whether a buyer can expect an upcoming increase. So a lot of buildings increase their maintenance or common charges by 1% to 2% on a yearly basis. So the history can really tell a potential client if they can expect another increase in the upcoming year. Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball and things do come up, but seeing the history of the increases can really tell us a lot if the building likes to stay on top of expenses and gradually increase every year, or they like to increase when needed, wait a few years and then increase again, or implement an assessment to cover for the current costs.
And that's so important. You know, I've taken buyers to buildings where they're like, we haven't increased the maintenance in 10 years. And I'm like, this is a disaster. This is not a positive. Costs have gone up. Like, just wait for the bill because it's coming. So yeah, that's important.
And it's actually, when I review the due diligence with my clients, when you do see a periodic and gradual consistent increase year after year, that tells you that the building is probably is ran properly because they're staying on top of things. So if something unexpected does happen, that type of building will most likely have enough money in reserves to cover for that unexpected cost.
Yeah, awesome. And what is number 4? This is all good so far. I'm loving this.
Okay. Number 4 is we want to know if there's any issues with a specific apartment the buyer is purchasing or neighboring apartments. So every board, whether it's a co-op board or a condo board, they meet on a monthly basis and they discuss what's going on in the building. Most attorneys go into the management company's office to review board minutes. So we look to see what's being discussed, if there's any issues. I specifically look to see if the apartment that my client is buying is mentioned in those minutes. Are there any issues with leaks, any bug infestations, or any issues with neighboring apartments? Is your neighbor smoking? Are there any noise complaints with the neighboring apartments next to you? Any disputes, use of illegal drugs? So it's very important to specifically look for issues with the apartment that your client is purchasing and also the neighboring apartments.
Well, and that's a good point because disputes would show up in those minutes. So if that apartment was fighting with the upstairs because their kids were running around all the time and they couldn't sleep or whatnot, that would show up in the board minutes.
Exactly. And you get a bigger picture of what you're walking into.
Perfect. All right, I'm ready for it. What is number 5?
So number 5 are any out of the ordinary things that are mentioned in the house rules. So it's very important to familiarize yourself, obviously as an attorney, but as a prospective buyer, with the house rules of the building that you're purchasing into. What is the pet policy? Some people have pets and their pets are like their children and they want to know the pet policy.
Especially in New York City. Sorry, because in New York City, it is, I feel like more than most places, our pets are our children.
Exactly. So what's the pet policy? What's the sublet policy? Some people buy with the knowledge of them wanting to sublet the apartment in a year or 2. So what is the sublet policy? Does the building charge a sublet fee? Does the building require approval for a potential tenant? So that's very important. Another thing are required repairs. So some buildings require new owners to do certain types of repairs. For example, some buildings will require you to replace the windows within, X months of the purchase of the apartment. Some buildings require new owners to update the breaker box in the apartment. So those are additional expenses. They should be considered when the purchase price is being negotiated. So those things are very important to know, and they would be listed in the house rules.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I came across someone who their building is requiring before they sell that they have to update the waste lines in the bathroom, and they were able to negotiate for the buyer to do it. But it's one of those things that if you don't know what you're walking into, it can be such a headache. Because I know the person I was working with, she just ended up doing it on her own, but it cost them a chunk of change. This is New York City. But also, I think they were out of their home for almost 3 months while they were doing a renovation of the bathroom. So this stuff is so important. Yeah, and it's not only just costs that you're going to potentially run into. It's also, as you said, seeing how well the building is run, because if you plan on staying there for a while, you know, how it's run is going to affect you for the long term while you're there. It'll make sure that you don't have neighbors that are being written about in the building gossip column, as I like to call it. But Lynn just keeps you all around safe, which is, you do such a great job at it.
Thank you. Awesome.
And thank you, Lynn, for being here. Anything else you should let people know about what you're looking for in due diligence?
Really, buyers want stability, they want reassurance, and a thorough due diligence provides that for a potential buyer. So it's very, very important that your attorney does a very thorough due diligence and really familiarizes themselves so they can educate you on the building that you're buying into.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you, Lynn. And if you want to get hold of Lynn, her information is below. So please feel free to reach out. We are a dual attorney city. So you're going to need an attorney. Why not work with the best? Well, there you have it. Lynn is obviously amazing at what she does. Her information is below, as I said, in case you need to get a hold of her. And now I hope that you have a little bit more information on what that attorney is looking for. If you would like to learn a little bit more about real estate here in New York City, please feel free to reach out to myself and the Wheelock team. And if you want to learn more about the offer process, please check out our video with 5 things you need in order to make an offer in New York City. But of course, if you're working with us, we'll help you out with that.